Okay. The prevailing global context has provided valuable lessons and amplified the need for visionary leadership across the globe.
COVID-19 pandemic has brought in a new challenge to the youth. I think, as we all know, youth unemployment is a major challenge that has been facing the globe over the last few years. However, during this pandemic, it wasn't.
Through it all, there's something special about the resilience of Africa's young people. The creativity, the will to overcome adversity, which is inherent in humankind, but shines even brighter in Africa.
From the 23rd to the 27th of November, ULEAD Summit will be held under the theme Development is People. This theme echoes the words of the founding father of Tanzania, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, who stated that any form of meaningful and sustainable development has to be people-centered. Since 2017, ULEAD Summit has been working to unlock youth leadership potential for a prosperous East Africa and the region.
As a bank, our purpose is Uganda is our home and we drive her growth. We cannot say that as a bank we drive her growth without helping the biggest population in this country.
The overall vision of ELF is to have dignified societies across Africa. And that is exactly what ULEAD was also doing, that they wanted to enhance the youth voice in the East African region.
As National Youth Council Kenya, we believe and we will continuously champion for engagements, meaningful engagement of young people, the Kenyan, the East African, and the African youth for a sustainably empowered youth.
Partnerships are very important within this ULEAD space, and not only for being a young person, but within our organization, because as young people, we realize we cannot move to the next step by ourselves. We need to work together in order for us to achieve our vision, in order for us to empower each other.
Support ULEAD in grassroots mobilization, grassroots convening and inventing of spaces for young people to actually have their voices amplified.
Investing in people is one of the most assured ways of realizing a country's development. We're therefore coming together this November, not only to talk, but to craft practical solutions for the prosperity and development of African youth.
ULEAD Summit 2020, which is convening for the 4th edition, will be a platform for the East African community, old and young, experienced and novice, to meet, interact, and discuss developmental issues without prejudice. The summit is hosted by MS Training Center for Development Cooperation and the East African Community in Arusha, and is co-owned and supported by the ULEAD Consortium of state and non-state partners across all the 6 East African Community member states and beyond, in the spirit of United Nations Agenda 2030, Leaving No One Behind, and the African Union Agenda 2063, The Africa We Want.
ULEAD Summit 2020 will be brought closer to you. We're making it possible for everyone to participate from anywhere. With qualified delegates, speakers, and mentors forming a limited physical audience under COVID-19 prevention standard operating procedures. The first setup will be the Regional Command Center, where sessions will be held at the EAC headquarters in Arusha, Tanzania.
Day 1 will be dedicated for the Under 40 Political Leaders Forum, Reinventing Leadership for East African Millennium. Day 2 will be the East African Youth Forum on Peace, Youth at the Center of Peace Building and Conflict Prevention. Day 3 will be the Under 40 Business Leaders Forum, Accelerating Economic Opportunities and Decent Work for Youth, which will be crowned by the Youth Enterprise Awards Gala Night Dinner. Day 4 will be the Post-Summit Agenda, and Day 5 will be the East Africa Youth Parliament, popularly known as the Vijana Assembly. These platforms will enable 10,000 delegates to participate, network, and engage in real time through audio and video chats, as well as interact with key partners and organizations supporting youth development in East Africa and beyond.
I personally look forward to the Under 40 Business Leaders Forum.
Karibuni, and all the nice ones to the ULEAD Summit 2020.
We therefore invite you to participate in ULEAD 20 by either applying to become a delegate or partnering with us to prepare for the summit and implement the outcomes. To apply as a delegate, simply visit www.uleadsummit.org and send in your application. To partner with us, you can contribute towards the overall budget, or you can support by adopting a booth, support a thematic day of the summit, or support a selected or nominated delegate to participate in the summit.
I personally look forward for the Political Leaders Forum Under 40.
I want to welcome you all to ULEAD Summit 20. Yay!
Mr. Munyoro, Mark, over to you. Mr. Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone that is joining us this afternoon for the regional consultation on AfCFTA, which is focusing on youth inclusion under the theme assessing youth awareness, participation, and their perspectives on the role they can play as stakeholders in AfCFTA implementation and promotion. And the meeting is meant to engage young people from the region of Southern Africa. A wonderful and warm welcome to the young people that are joining us from Southern Africa. And also a very, very warm welcome to the panelists that are going to be sharing and engaging with us as young people this afternoon. My name is McDonald Munyoro, and I will be your co-host for today. We are pleased to welcome you to this webinar, which builds upon a series of regional and continental key informant interviews in support of a continental research commission by the East African Community Ambassadors through support of GIZ, African Union Office, and a collective of youth-serving organizations across Africa. In Southern Africa, the two collaborating organizations for the research under the AfCFTA Youth Inclusion Accelerator Project are SAYO of SADC and SADC Youth Council. The ongoing research seeks to assess youth awareness, participation, and their perspectives on the role they can play as stakeholders in AfCFTA implementation and promotion. We are pleased to have you all here today with such a vibrant and engaging panel with us today. Before we move into the panel session, allow me at this juncture to invite Franklin to just share a bit more on the project. I'm sure visuals that have just been presented to us, we might have a question or two, and hopefully he can speak to those as we are in the opening session. Over to you, Franklin, and thank you.
Thank you, McDonald. Kindly allow me to defer to my colleague, Moses, who will be taking over that responsibility. Kindly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Franklin. Thank you, our dear panelists and speakers, participants, and everyone who have spared his or her time to be with us. I will just take a few minutes, if not 1 minute. And my name is Moses Kanyasije. I'm speaking from Arusha, the headquarters of ULEAD. ULEAD is Youth Leadership Program that is hosted by Training Center for Development Cooperation. And specifically this project, Youth Inclusion Accelerator Project, which seeks to look at and engage the participation assessing the youth awareness and the participation and perspectives of youth in this new framework and this agreement, which is African Continental Free Trade Area. Many scholars and experts have said that this agreement bring opportunities and benefits to youth, especially movement, employment in all sectors. But as we looked at how aware are the youth of Africa, are they aware enough to take this opportunity? Were they consulted as stakeholders? Mind you, we are the 60%, if not 70%, that make up the population of Africa. So this project is being implemented in collaboration with GIZ African Union, TCDC, which is Training Center for Development Cooperation, and URID, plus youth-led organizations in Africa. And specifically for Southern region, we are happy that we are collaborating with SADC Youth Council and Southern Africa Youth Forum. And of course, we have the representative of Comesa Youth Hub, Mr. Mwira, and of course, other individuals that are in ad hoc youth working group. So this forum today, it's not a conference. It's not these webinars that people talk and others listen. This is an interaction. It's a youth webinar that you interact with experts. The preamble of this agreement talks about inclusiveness, where it mentions youth and women. So if we decide and say we are going to have this agreement as a youth, we should find out and highlight what we need in this agreement and ask our government. So let it be as interactive as it can, and let it be the way you come, you go when you're different. So Mark, allow me to also recognize the staff and the leadership of TCDC and URID, which are here. And of course, I recognize the speakers and you, the moderator, and let this session be as interactive, as youth-friendly as it can. I submit and I hand over to you, Mr. Mark. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words. And today is the emphasis around the meeting being an interaction for young people. We need to be as free as we can, as much as we can, to be open-minded as we get into the engagement this afternoon. Thank you so much for creating this platform for the young people of Africa. And I believe that through this session this afternoon, we are going to the matters at hand. Allow me at this juncture to recognize fully our partner. I'd like to introduce each of them and also have each of them maybe just to say hi to each of us. I would like to start by introducing Mr. Innocent Paradzai Makuramiti, Senior Private Sector Development Officer with Comesa. Say, I kindly ask you to introduce yourself by briefly sharing with us in 3 minutes. And this is not in the 1 minute that we gave to Moses, but in exactly 3 minutes, what you do and what your professional work entails. After the introductory round for each panelist, I will then come back to you to ask after specific questions. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Mr. Paradzai Makuramiti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Innocent Pyramid. I am with the Commercial Secretariat based here in Lusaka, Zambia. I'm with the industry and agriculture division of the Commercial Secretariat. As you know, COMESA is composed of 21 member states, which is almost half of Africa. Its key mandate is to promote trade and investment within the region. This involves a number of activities, promotion of trade facilitation, that's removal of all trade barriers, tariff and non-tariff barriers, so that goods and services are able to move freely within the region, thereby promoting investment, promoting development. But the key issue is, what do you trade in? You need to invest. You need to industrialize. You need to improve agriculture so that you are able to trade on what you produce, not on what you import from China, from Europe. So that's where I am now. My key role is to facilitate, to coordinate industrialization within the COMESA region. And it is the private sector that invests, it is the private sector that industrializes. So really, this involves improving the investment climate for the private sector, giving opportunities for the private sector so that it is able to produce the required goods and services. And so that's where I am. That's what I do, facilitating industrialization agenda, which then deepens regional integration. And this doesn't apply only to established companies. This applies to women. This applies to youth. The issue is to remove all barriers, to improve the investment climate so that all the key players are able to produce the required goods and services which are then tradable within the COMESA region. In brief, I think that's what I'm involved in, and that's what Innocent does for the COMESA region. I'm a Zimbabwean by origin, but now I am a proud COMESA citizen. Thank you very much. I submit, Mr. Coordinator. Hello.
Thank you, Innocent. I'm Moses again. Maybe I don't know whether our moderator Mark is having
Hello.
Mark. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Paradzai, for the overview of what you do. We truly appreciate it, and it's really good to have you on the panel. Allow me to move on to our second panelist. It is my pleasure to welcome our second panelist, Ms. Ndahafa Hapulile, the Economic Diplomacy Advocate and Central Committee member of SWAPO. Ms. Hapulile, kindly share with us about the work that you do in exactly 3 minutes. Over to you.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and good afternoon to all African youth out there and those in the diaspora. Yes, I am economic diplomacy advocate, and I've actually been passionate about Africa and African economy. You know, I always say that God was intentional when he chose Africa and positioned Africa the way that is, because we have different issues to leverage on. So as we know, trade in itself must be economical, meaningful. So my work, literally what I do is that I assist in making sure that people or in countries, nation, or everybody who has economic interest understand the environment that they are in. As we know that investment, as much as it's financial, data plays an important role in access to information. So a large part of the work I do is to advise on the right information, data collection, as well as finding the niche of each person, as well as to see how they can grow from their own leverage. And I'm fortunate enough that on a daily basis, I'm employed in an environment that allows me to really be what I'm most passionate about, which is a serving to Africa. And because of my position, God positioned me in Namibia. So I'm serving Africa from the Namibian context, and I'm currently employed as a personal assistant to the Minister of Information and Communication Technology. So I'm literally act as a bridge between the citizen, the executive, legislature, and basically everybody who has information, who need access to information. That is in a nutshell what I do.
Thank you, Ms. Apulile, for the introduction and those wonderful insights. It's really good to have you today. Allow me to move on to our third and final panelist. The third guest is Ms. Nokwanda Dlamini, Curator, Global Shapers Mbabane Hub, or Change Maker, who has worked in the human capital BB space for over 5 years, is part of USAID Young African Leadership Initiative, has been an African Union youth volunteer, and is part of the Eswatini COVID-19 National Emergency Response Official Technical Working Group, and currently serves on the board of directors for Kwakwa Indzoza, Eswatini's first male mentoring organization. Yes, that is Ms. Nokwanda Dlamini. Kindly choose whichever aspect of your resume so far you would like to share with us in briefly 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I think I want to talk about my experience as a global shaper. So you'll see this is the Global Shapers logo behind me. And the Global Shapers Mbabane Hub is basically a registered nonprofit in the Kingdom of Eswatini. It's a youth-led and youth-driven chapter of the Global Shapers community, which in itself is an initiative of the World Economic Forum. And the Mbabane Hub is a working example of exceptional young people in their own right, who work together and are passionately involved in the enrichment of the greater Mbabane city and the people of our beautiful kingdom as a whole. Our commitment as shapers, which is what we call ourselves, is basically to prove that no vision is too big and no hub city is too small to make a difference and lasting contribution to our community. So this is done through our hub's commitment to the 3 E's, which are education, empowerment, and exceptionalism. So I won't go into the rest of the things that you read in the introduction. I think I'm here in my capacity as the curator of the Global Shapers Community in Mbabane Hub, and very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Dlamini, it's really good to have you on the panel, and we look forward to engaging you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have of what our guests today do, and we appreciate them wholeheartedly. Let me also mention that we'll be hearing a lot more from you, our audience, in a few minutes' time. So prepare your questions and input, and I will invite you to share them very soon. There will also be a poll which will be administered shortly after the second speaker. You'll be able to see it once it is launched. The setup of these continental convenings has been deliberately interactive, from the Zoom meeting setup to the format itself. So we appreciate you keeping your microphone on mute during panelists' inputs, and you can raise your hand during the Q&A segment. During that segment, you'll be free to switch on your video and speak if you so wish. So allow me to proceed to the first question to Mr. Innocent. In what ways will Southern Africa youth benefit from the AfCFTA implementation? Over to you, Mr. Innocent Baradzai.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The African Free Continental Trade Area was formed with the idea of removing all trade barriers so that goods and services are able to move freely within all the member states. This also includes the factors of production. So that's one aspect of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The other arm rests on investments and industrialization. The protocol is still under negotiation. As I said earlier in my introduction, you trade on what you produce, on what you invest in Africa. It's not that we are moving all the barriers, we are moving, allowing factors of production to move so that we allow tradable goods from China, tradable goods from India, tradable goods from the USA. No, what we are talking of are tradable removal of barriers for goods that are produced within Africa. Now, I'm now talking in perspective of the COMESA region. The COMESA region is adopted an industrial strategy. And that strategy also, one key intervention area relates to the youth and the women in entrepreneurs, how best they can be promoted, how best they can be empowered so that they are able to produce the goods and services which are required. So that's where now the youth come in. We have got the small medium enterprises strategy, which really gives or empowers the youth in terms of access to markets, access to technology, business development. So through these instruments, the youth are able to produce what they can trade, what they can now trade within the African Continental Free Trade Area. That's how now the youth come in within the African Free Trade Area. They must produce, they must be empowered, they must be provided with a conducive environment, because we are the future leaders. We are nearing our retirement. You are the future leaders. You must be empowered. You must be given all the opportunities. We must be able to nurture you. So that's how we do it within the COMESA region. So in a nutshell, I should say the policy instruments of COMESA as relates to industry and agriculture are there also to empower the youth so that they are part and parcel of the production processes, so that they are part and parcel of those who produce goods and services which are then tradable within the African free trade area. So in a nutshell, that's how COMESA is empowering the youth so that they are part and parcel of the recently formed African free trade area. The youth must be able to invest. The youth must be able to produce so that they are part and parcel of the whole system. I submit, Mr. Moderator. No, I think.
Mr. McDonald? Hello, McDonald?
We seem to have lost him, eh?
Thank you very much, Mr. Innocent. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello, may you please confirm if I'm audible?
Yes, you are.
Hello? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Innocent Faradzai. Starting from the Namibian context, and now we are moving on to the Hafapule. Starting from the Namibian context, do you think youth perspectives are vital for the successful implementation of AfCFTA? And if yes, why is it important to incorporate them, youth, in AfCFTA processes? Over to you, Ms. Hapulile.
No, thank you very much. I think it's very, very important for young people to be involved, especially so now that the political will has been determined and that our leaders have literally said that they are ready to go this way. You know what? We have to understand, especially from the Namibian market, one would say Namibia is a country with a small population. Why do we need to enter into, why do we have to be part of this agreement and how will it benefit Namibian? So what we have to understand and why young people need to be involved is that government from government perspective, government has been very intentional, and that is visible in the way our budget has been allocated, investment in education, as well as the upgrading of our infrastructure, namely road network. We have also been investing in dry port for various other countries, as well as the harbor has also been upgraded, as well as our airport. Now that is a strategic positioning of a country, and young people, we are literally the active agent. And in Namibia, we have an issue of unemployed graduates. Now that is an opportunity for young people to position ourselves so that we can add value to the to this agreement. What we have to realize about this agreement, what is trying to really promote is inter-African trade. Trade is happening, but what we have is our raw material and natural resources going out of countries without value addition and limitation between countries to trade among themselves. So you have an issue where an item is coming from an African country, goes out of the region and then come back in, and that is an increase in cost of the products, and which then discourages people from trading among themselves. And the other issue is that there is no industries to process this goods. So it's only natural for these goods to be imported. But now when young people are involved in this process, there is an opportunity for us to actually be part of the crafting a new Africa. As we are all aware, most of the African countries, including Namibia, were colonized. So what we have are inherited systems that we found already from our colonizers and that we have inherited. Some of them we had to rebuild. But this is one of the instruments that are in place that we are actually still involved in the crafting of. So it's very important that our views, needs, and aspirations are incorporated in this agreement so that we then are going to implement and shape the Africa that we want, the one that we are actually going to lead, because this thing is done for us and it's actually in our interest to get involved, because the intention of this agreement, if you look at it, is increase food security, increase our global competitiveness, and also to eliminate some of the red tapes that we among ourselves, because these red tapes are mostly disadvantaging young people. And what we call now that we have, especially in Namibia, we have what we call informal market. With this agreement, this will no longer be informal market. This will be formal markets, and young people will be the major key player and the benefiter of this agreement. So it's very, very important for us to be involved, both in the crafting thereof, as well as key participant to ensure that it's realized and that it's enforced and operational. Are you there?
All right, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Hapulile. We wish to continue this engaging conversation by launching a poll before welcoming our third speaker. So I invite the tech team to launch the poll. And yes, I hope you can all see the poll questions on your screens. Take 3 minutes to fill in the quick poll, even as we invite Ms. Nokwanda Dlamini to answer to this question. E-commerce is being tipped as a major enabler for inter-African trade. Let me start by asking, have you ever bought anything online produced from Africa, either a good or service? Ms. Nokwanda?
Hi, yes, I have bought something online. It was a good. In fact, I've bought many things online. I think my most recent experience, though, of buying online from a different country was at the end of March or the beginning of April. I want to say end of March, and I ordered this beautiful African print top from a company in Johannesburg, South Africa, called Batini Designs. And before that, I'd been buying things online from, Instagram and people who produce goods locally. And obviously with local production, there isn't the element of transport and cross-border. So it was my first time kind of being exposed to that type of trade on a even though it's on a small level. Now between Johannesburg and Mbabane, it's a 4-hour drive or a 45-minute flight. So obviously when I ordered this top or dress, like you can wear it as a top or a dress that I bought, I didn't anticipate that it would take such a long time and have so many hassles attached to it. So I think the first kind of issue is the ease of payments online. When you're buying from a foreign country, it becomes very difficult for you to make a payment into a different country without jumping through a lot of loopholes that the financial institutions have put in place to stop things like money laundering and such. So it becomes very difficult to trade, first of all, and just make the payment. And so the second hassle, once I'd gotten through the banks and made sure that the source of funds was cleared and the seller had received my payment, the next hurdle was getting the material or the clothing to Eswatini, which, like I said, is a 4-hour drive or a 45-minute flight. But even that was a hassle on its own because of courier fees. I think the ease of movement of goods has not necessarily been ironed out as yet, even or especially with small and medium enterprises. I think it becomes easier the larger the institution, but for small and medium enterprises, which us the youth tend to be, it still is very difficult for you to move goods and services between countries, even if they're neighboring countries like Eswatini and South Africa. So yes, I think just besides the inefficient delivery and payment methods, I have ordered something online and successfully got it. If I knew that this question was coming, I would have worn it so I can show you guys. But yes, I have ordered something online.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nokwanda. Let me also ask the other panelists, and the participants can feel free to type in the chat what goods or services they have procured online. These are goods or services that are produced from components which are at least 90% primary products from Africa. Ms. Apulile, Innocent, might you have any incidences where you might want to share what goods or services that you've been able to procure online?
From my side, in terms of from African origin, it's been very difficult though. I tried to procure African print. That's the only thing I really managed to. But in terms of African items, that one I did not manage to, because again the issue of restriction, because most of the countries, African countries, trade natural products or especially food items that I've been trying to get from other countries other than South Africa, because Namibia does get most of its food items from South Africa. So I had a friend who was a Yali alumni like I, who was staying in Kenya. So, and they had very good agricultural products that we wanted to look into creating a system between the fellow from Kenya and Zimbabwe, so that we can then bring those goods to Namibia, which were, it included potatoes and it was potatoes and onion. So it proved very difficult, especially with customs. They were asking a lot of papers that we needed to fill in. It didn't materialize, but then when you try to procure the same goods from South Africa, one was able to. I did not have those challenges, but when I was trying to get them from Zimbabwe and Kenya, it appeared a bit challenging because they wanted to know what is being watered, what type of water the veggies are being fed with, what type of the soil that it's being planted in. So it was a lot of bureaucracy in there. I did not succeed. So the only thing that I could really procure was African print materials, and that was from Ghana.
Yeah, that's true. You see, myself, I've procured goods and services outside Africa, online. But in as far as Africa is concerned, no, I have never experienced it, and I have not done so. Why? What does this indicate? This indicates that our industrialization levels are still very low. One. Two, the barriers to trade are still there. Notwithstanding that there's COMESA, notwithstanding that there's SADC, notwithstanding that there's the East African community, the barriers to trade are still there in one way or the other. So that can now reflect on the success of the African free trade African free trade area. If there is no political will to remove those barriers, the African free trade area will just die as a white elephant. One is the political commitment, which is needed. So the political commitment comes in from the leadership. It must be committed to what it is agreed upon to remove all trade barriers. One, then if the barriers are removed, then we industrialize, we improve on our industrialization agenda. Then we are able to trade the goods and services which we produce locally, which are at the required standards. As the previous speaker was saying, it was an issue of standards. That's why she was unable to get those veggies into her country. The issue of standards. It's another trade barrier. And this restricts the movements of goods from Kenya to Zimbabwe, from Zimbabwe to Namibia. So really it rests on political commitment. If this is not there, then the African free trade area will not be a success. I submit, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much, Innocent. And back to you, Ms. Nokwanda. How can young people from SADC best position themselves to harness these opportunities in e-commerce?
Thank you. I think Innocent has kind of alluded to what I was going to speak about, and also Ndahafa, which basically, I think it all boils down to information dissemination. And I mean, I like the fact that we're having this conversation, but it really is one of the very first times that us as youth, or at least I have been engaged in a conversation on the African continental free trade agreements. And I think so that's kind of the main way that I think we would be able to make full use of this agreement, which is to disseminate the information, decentralize it, make sure that everybody knows about the benefits, the uses, the process, the approach, and they're able to fully utilize it. Because I think that's kind of one of the main blockages is when you just don't know what you don't know. So you're not able to make full use of it because of that. And I think secondly, the youth can also partner and leverage on existing connections between different countries. So there are other networks, including this one, that you can leverage on to make connections with people in different countries and leverage on those partnerships. Because I think this is something that the South Africans who are able to bring in goods and services, agricultural goods into Namibia a lot easier, are able to do quite efficiently. So I think us as youth also need to start forming and leveraging on partnerships. And then lastly, not being afraid to establish connections with people who have walked the path before, who are older, who know the ways of getting around some of the things that we would need to go through first. So for example, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to start from scratch. You can leverage on existing ways of doing things that have been there before in the past. So I think those are my top three, which is information, partnerships, and then leveraging on existing connections and ways of doing things that are established.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nokwanda. Now, moving on to our fourth question, after which we are going to open up for questions and interaction with the audience. I would like to pose a question to Mr. Innocent. How best can Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, governments and policymakers involve youth in the successful implementation of AfCFTA? Please, sir, the floor is yours. Mr.
Hello.
Innocent.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just gone offline. Can you repeat your question? Sorry, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. So we are now moving on to our fourth question. Before we open up for questions and interaction with the audience. And our first question is addressed to you, which is how best can Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, governments and policymakers involve youth in the successful implementation of AfCFTA?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm speaking on behalf of COMESA. I'm not speaking on behalf of SADC, although I know SADC is our sister organization. Well, I mean, we are both part and parcel of the tripartite, which encompasses SADC, COMESA, and the East African community. The key issue here is to mainstream gender, to mainstream the youth in all development projects. If it's an issue of a key intervention area in the industrialization process, for example, they should mainstream the youth in that particular program. That's how best we can incorporate the youth. In other ways, what I'm talking of, if it's a key intervention area, say in industry, then the youth must be mainstreamed into that particular program. I can give you a good example, which is the RECAMP. RECAMP is an EU-funded program, which is aimed at improving competitiveness and market access of 3 identified value chains, which is horticulture, agro-processing, leather and leather products. Those are the identified value chains, which we hope will improve on poverty reduction, increase in employment, increase in investment, especially in the small medium enterprises sector. So in that program, there is an element of the programs that are directed to the youth, because they are also part and parcel of these value chains. So they are mainstreamed in that program, in terms of capacity development, in terms of access to finance, in terms of business development, you name it, in terms of integrating with other regional and global value chains, especially in those three areas which I have mentioned. So through that process, they are able to produce goods and services which can now be tradable within value-added products, which can now be traded within the continental free trade area. There's no other way we can say we can integrate or improve or the position of the youth without mainstreaming them in all the development programs that whether they are regional, whether they are national, whether they are in South Africa, whether they are in COMESA, whether they are in SADC. That's how the policymakers are able to integrate the youth so that they become key players within the African continental free trade area. I submit, Mr. Coordinator.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Innocent Paradzai, for those thoughts. Allow me to invite Ms. Apulile to weigh in on the input provided by Mr. Innocent. Over to you, Ms. Apulile.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I am from SADC, so I can't speak on that one. There's no way to go around it. But how the youth can be involved. I think one of the things that I think is very crucial that we need to do in SADC is to change our consultative mechanism or modalities on how we go about consulting by moving with the numbers. By that, I mean that if we are saying that the young people are the majority, then if our consultative mechanism are not so as to factor in that majority, then they might not be as effective as we might want them to be. What I've realized is that consultation has been happening, and countries signed, there were ratifications and people were invited. But then are we at this moment, even that question, perhaps the question should be, are young people aware of this agreement? Do they know what it entails? Do they know how they can benefit? So the first thing I think that we really need to take seriously, and SADC can really ensure that young people are involved, is to ensure that young people are aware of this agreement and what it means for them. And this is, unlike other policies that we have had on the continent, and because I've heard a lot of people saying that, yeah, we are just having policies after policy. This is not a policy. This is actually a legal framework, and that, that there's also mechanism in there where there's expectations and there's also responsibility. So this is actually something that one can hold one accountable on. And the system itself, if you look at really the African free trade, the African Free Trade Area Agreement, is that the processes in there, there are mechanisms in place that actually favors young people. For instance, there is what we call the Pan-African Payment and Settlement Platform that they are currently working on, which then helps cover those trade barriers within the different countries. This modality, once it's enforced, because they are currently working on it in partnership with AfriBank, if I'm correct, to ensure that one is able to buy goods using local currencies, and then that person that you are paying will receive in the local currency. So that platform will then cover the conversion rate, which is a bit of a challenge. And they're also working into financing of women and young people with a 1 billion SME financing facility. So these are opportunities. So what we can then do, our respective government, is to ensure that young people are aware of this opportunity. And so the second one would perhaps be building industry, because we keep on saying that we want to see more young people involved. Young people must take up opportunity. With what? Now, if a young person does not have a means of income, they will not be able to take up an opportunity, and it's very hard to plan or think on an empty tummy. So that is also one element that we need to work on. The moment we create industry, young people are the one with the energy. Automatically, they are going to leverage to take advantage of this opportunity, and they're the one who are going to be employed. And the moment we put systems in place, the moment work needs to be done, it's the young people that are there. And when we say that young people are the demographic dividend, if we do not involve them, then that word will have no meaning. Then literally what it means that young people will become a demographic liability.
Chair, Mr. Moderator, I just want to come in just to add on what the previous speaker is saying. You know, I might pose a question. When the discussions for the African Free Trade Continental Area were taking place for the past 5 years or so, before implementation ADC, were the youth involved in the policy-making decisions? No, they were not involved. It was just the policymakers themselves, the bureaucrats in government who were discussing about it. So that's where one challenge is, that we do not involve the youth in the policy-making decisions. I remember very well, I developed and crafted the COMESA industrial strategy. But truly speaking, we involved other key stakeholders, but the youth were not there. We never involved them. That's why you are now coming and asking me, is the African Continental Free Trade Area meant for the youth? You are correct, because you are not involved in the policy-making area decisions. You should be. That's the mainstreaming I was talking about. That you should make all efforts that you are involved in the policy-making decisions. Through that way, you are involved and you are able to participate, and these are idea of awareness. Yes, the government can publicize here and there, but it doesn't give you the nitty-gritties. You should be involved as the future leaders. You should be involved in the policy-making decisions of these continental regions. It reminds me the other year when we had a summit of presidents for COMESA member states I think that was 2015, 2016 in Kinshasa. One leader who is late now, after the meeting, there was a lot of food and wine and people drinking, and as happens in those summits. Then he said, but we are whining, we are drinking here heavily, but we've got a bomb which is outside there, and it can explode at any time because we are not taking care of that bomb. The bomb which he was referring to was the youth. He was referring the youth, because there is unemployment, they are not well integrated in the production systems, they are marginalized. That's a time bomb which he was referring to. And that was the late President Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe. Those words still come into my mind. That the time bomb is the time bomb. The bomb is there outside. It will explode at any time. So to answer it, I think the youth must be involved in the policy-making decisions of all regional economies, whether it's SADC, whether it's COMESA, whether it's East African Community, whether it's ECOWAS in West Africa. You must be involved you have got the mandate to be involved in those key policy-making decisions. Thank you. I submit, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Innocent Paradzai, for speaking so passionately on the need for youth inclusion and participation. Let me also, at this moment in time, invite Ms. Nokwanda to react to the inputs by Mr. Innocent and Ms. Sapulile on how best policymakers can involve youth in AfCFTA implementation.
I agree. Thank you so much, moderator. I agree with both of the speakers. Innocent, particularly to do with the mainstreaming of youth, and also Ndahafa when she was talking about just the involvement in terms of awareness and information sharing. But as they were both talking, I couldn't help but think that this is the same song we've been singing, since we started talking about this. Nothing has really changed, which I think brings me to my kind of submission, which I think, we need to start making or implementing quotas, or making sure that there's some type of legal provision that guarantees a minimum participation of young people, in order to ensure that their rights, their interests, their concerns are taken into account when decisions are made, and most importantly in the implementation, because that's how it ends up happening, is that in the decision-making stage, it's the high up government officials drinking wine and eating with a ticking time bomb outside. And then when it comes to implementation, you call upon the youth to talk about these things and try to make do with decisions that they were not involved in from inception. So I think that would be my submission. I know that there are a lot of people who don't believe in quotas and ensuring a legal kind of requirement to say this is the minimum amount of youth that must be present in the room, or else we're not proceeding. We cannot go ahead without them. So yeah, I think that's my main submission, is to say we have been talking about this honestly till the cows come home, and at every youth engagement, this is the same song that we sing. Nothing has changed. So I think for me, the only way forward in terms of action plans would probably be to include the youth component or requirements in terms of the legislation itself.
Mark?
Thank you, Ms. Nokwanda. And thank you so much to our dear panelists. The time has now come to open it up to our esteemed participants, who are the youth that are joining us from Southern Africa. Just a reminder, we kindly request you to raise your hand, and only when the moderator is called upon you will you unmute yourself and speak. Let us remain cordial as we have been. So this is the moment for us as young people to engage with the conversation that has been happening so far between our three esteemed panelists, and also engage them on some topical issues. I've been seeing some questions that have been coming on the chat box. And I think as we wait for raised hands to come up, it could also be a good starting point. I would want to recognize Prosper Zimbili's hand.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So this is basically my question that has been in the chat. As young people, I get what Nokwanda has been saying, and basically what everyone is saying about mainstreaming and us being marginalized. But can we then not form sort of a continental body for the purposes of lobbying our individual governments, although we'll be doing it collectively, which is sort of like giving them a nudge towards the political will that we need them to have in terms of mainstreaming. Because then if we wait for them and say we think that one day they'll wake up and feel sorry and say, well, we've been marginalizing the young people for too long, that's not going to happen. So can we then not come together, sort of like have a lobbying body, which we can then collectively help one another to lobby our individual governments? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prosper. We're now moving on to Tilvas Ngosa. Tilvas.
Thank you, moderator. I think I had indicated the question in the chat box. It's interesting to follow through the conversation, and I think Mr. Innocent gave a very passionate I don't know if it's an appeal. I've been involved in youth programming for quite some time. And I would actually also love to know what are some of the available opportunities that we young people, that we can also be able to take advantage of, and also be able to share within the youth networks, the different youth networks that we belong to in Southern Africa. As you may be aware, advocacy is about numbers. So if a good proportion of young people is not well represented, then definitely the interests of young people cannot be considered. So what are some of the available opportunities that then young people in Southern Africa can be able to take advantage of in these regional bodies which you and other comrades sit on? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to recognize Daniel.
Good greetings to everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm from the African Union Commission. I currently work from the AfCFTA Secretariat in Accra. So as I'm currently speaking from the Secretariat. I joined this conversation through a colleague of mine who also works in the AU, who sent the link and registration details. Great conversations. I just wanted to note down a few or bring up a few contributions to the narrative. So with regards to youth mainstreaming, I don't know if many of us have had the opportunity to go through the various documents that speak about the AfCFTA agreement. Personally, I have gone through a number of documents. I am hosted a number of discussions, and also I was privileged to have some of the top leadership of the Secretariat come on some of the conversations that I hosted, and some young trade negotiators in some of the African member states join in. And if you read the terms, the protocols on the agreement, you would realize that a lot of the propositions are towards the benefit of young people. For example, if you look at the Trade and Services Protocol, they are one of the areas they want to introduce is e-commerce. And if you look at the African climate, you notice that a lot of young people are in that space. I believe about 70% of young people have a large space within the e-commerce area. So which means that, the whole protocol of trade and services is going to benefit, young people. The whole trading goods, the trading goods protocol is also another protocol. A lot of young people are venturing into agriculture, which is the highest earner when it comes to GDP in the continent. So I believe strongly that yes, as Mr. Innocent said, youth were not really involved when the whole protocol, the whole agreement was formed. But I believe strongly that, reading the agreement, there's a lot of synergy between what the agreement seeks to achieve and young people. What I would advise finally is that young people should also, make the effort. You don't always expect, government to come to you to do this, to do that. For example, the organization creating this platform for conversations is an effort. You can also make an effort, visit your regional office, your trade office, and offer yourself, to support work around disagreement. And I believe that, when we all collectively, offer ourselves, we'll be able to create that impact and put that pressure in the bosom of our leaders, and hopefully they'll be able to push more to ensure that this agreement positively affects young people. So basically, that's what I just wanted to add. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Also, allow me just to go through some of the questions that have been put in the chat box before we allow our panelists to speak to the questions that have been raised. There is a question from Messi Mutana, who's saying, how can youth be at the policy inception, especially African organizations, by the panelists? And then there's also a question from Hilary Gwanzura, where she is saying a question to Mr. Makwiramiti: how can we be involved as youth in these different platforms? And there's also a question from Messi Mutana on how may one join and be part of Youth Lead in Africa and Kenya. So this might not really be to our panelists, but to our organizers, YouLead. So I'm going to give it over to the panelists just to speak to any of the questions that has been raised that speaks either to a part of their presentation or that highlights an area of interest. Thank you.
Can I please start? So I wanted to speak to the last speaker, Daniel, when he was talking about the fact that some of the documents have been made available to the youth, or they can access them in some way or the other. And I think I don't necessarily agree. I think that the documents that have to do with African trade, they're not easily accessible, and they're also not packaged in a way that the youth would easily and quickly find and use as a reference. So even in preparation for today's conversation, it's mainly the actual websites where this information can be found. But on the other hand, most young people are on social media, but there is no Twitter account that can help drive conversations and make sure that this information is disseminated. So I think it's not just about sticking to the ways that things have been done, and then the youth must slot themselves in somehow to fit into the existing structure. It's also about rethinking the way that we do business, to keep in attune with the times that we're in terms of technology, which has been accelerated by COVID. And there's so many pockets of things or ways that we can exploit some of these technological advancements, such as, for example, this meeting that we're able to hold today. So there's also Facebook, there's Twitter, there's other different ways that I think we still haven't tapped into, and in order to engage the youth. So it's not enough to say the document is there and it's great. It needs to appeal to the youth and be packaged in a way that makes it so that we can engage with the conversation. If you, for example, from your own Twitter account or from the business Twitter account, start these conversations on Twitter, on Facebook, and let young people join in online or however they see fit. It's not just to post one document in the same formats that you've been posting it for decades and then say that it's there.
All right, okay. Thank you very much. Yes, Innocent?
Okay, there is a question whereas a colleague is asking what are some of the available opportunities in these regional bodies that us young people can take advantage of to be part of it. Yes, the opportunities are there. I think the key weakness which we have, and I'm talking from practical experience as a private sector development expert within the Comesa region, I have never interacted with the youth. It is my first time to interact with the youth during this meeting. You know, there is no collaboration, there is no networking with the youth. It's only with the senior civil service, the senior government officials. So you don't know what activities that were engaged in, which might be of benefit to you. I was just, in my introduction, I was talking of the RECAM project. It's a regional program aimed at increasing the competitiveness and the market access of goods and services produced by the women and the youth. And I doubt very much that you are aware of it. And I think it's the first time you are here. It's an opportunity, a door which is open to the youth. You are part and parcel of the small, medium enterprises. So really, the weakness is on our communicating strategies between you and us, the regional economic communities. It's your regional body. It's not my regional body. Actually, you are my boss. That's what you must know. I reported to you. You are my boss. You are the member state. The member state of Eswatini, the member state of Zimbabwe, the member state of South Africa, the member state of Malawi, Zambia. You are my boss. My bosses. It's your organization. You are free to come and to connect with us in terms of what are the opportunities available. You know, you have got your bodies which is represented here. We should network, we should interact, we should collaborate, so that you know what is happening within your regional economic community. So it's an issue of communication. But I've just highlighted the opportunities are there. One of them is RECAP. It's you come as a body, then we interact, we see how best we can mainstream you into some of these programs as they use. I submit, Mr. Moderator. So just to continue, I think there's a lot of lobbying which you need to do, especially with us, the regional economic communities, whether it's SADC, whether it's COMESA, whether it's the Eastern African community. There's a heavy lobbying which you must do so that you are made aware of all what we are doing into our regional economic communities. I submit, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much. Do we have an intervention from Ms. Pulile?
Yes, I do. Apart from agreeing with all that the speakers have said, I think I would just like to say that the entire agreement itself is an opportunity for young people, because this thing mostly speak to our positioning. And then when we create a single market for the African continent, it means that there's more opportunity, more ground to play on. And basically what it means is that we become one single market. We can leverage on our population, we can leverage on our different niches, and we can someone who's in Namibia will be able to easily trade with someone who's next door. So you have a market within itself. But another thing that I want to speak on, mostly because I'm a politician by nature, but I'm fortunate enough to be in the economical sector. Now we have to realize that as much as this will help address all other issues that we have, it is an economical mechanism. And unfortunately in economics, interest dictates how things move. And everything that is economical has to make economical sense. So now I think one of the way to answer the question of how do young people can be mainstreamed, one can easily be mainstream by positioning ourselves, by looking at ourselves. How do we position ourselves? How can we leverage on our collective numbers as young people? And I would hate to be a devil's advocate in this instance, but I would really be doing my ancestors an injustice if I do not honestly tackle this point, because I'm privileged to also have access to sit with these people. And on time to time, I'm actually puzzled. A lot of time you find young people who are head of institutions, head of organizations coming together, and then they will be discussing why young people are not involved, how young people can be involved when they are leaders of their respective communities, and for them being invited to this platform is young people being involved. So basically what we also have to look at and really how we can be fully involved in this agreement is by taking ownership of it, because we are the one it was created for. Because unfortunately, from a business point of view, business is opportunistic. You know, we are launching this big thing as an African continent. This is an audacious, big vision, you know, and it's not a new vision. It's a Kwame Nkrumah dream, it's the Julius Nyerere dream. And it has been, we have tried various things over the years, and the blockage, the economic blocks that we have now are part of it was a strategic arrangement to get us where we are today. And we have to realize that currently there are people whose market we are going to disturb with this. So it's not going to be easy. So we have to really take ownership of this thing and realize that as much as we feel disadvantaged, when something is working, we are the benefactor of it. So our power lies in unity, because economy is driven by the numbers. The number dictate where the investment goes. So if we are going to continue saying, how are we going to be involved, instead of saying, let's involve ourselves, then those that are benefiting are not going to change it because it's serving them. You know, you are the one who's disadvantaged. You are the one who have to position yourself. And we are all leaders in our respective communities. So maybe the way forward on how to benefit in this is that consultation happen, and that we have acknowledged here and we have noted. You know, and this is our youth consultation. So this signature were done without our involvement, but from a consultation process point of view. Hence, I said that we must change our approach to consultation, because what usually happens is that consultation does take place, but we take institutions. Now, those institutions, are they on the ground? Are they existing? Do they have structures? Do they go back and report to the people? So that is what we need to look at from a governance point of view and from the leadership point of view, because we invite institution, but that institution is just a person who never report back. But then us as young people who are disadvantaged by this very system and who are going to be working with this thing and to ensure that it's successful, because if we are not involved, this thing will not take off, because already we are going to disturb, you know, we are disturbing colonial system and division that's already in place. Those things were economically viable for those who established them. And now you are coming with a new system to say we want to unite, and you think it will be easy. It will not be easy. So I think maybe for the sake of positioning, you know, ourselves as young people, I think we must change our mindset and narrative from how do we position, or how do we then leverage on this from our ICT technology. How do I develop a platform that will then link me with my neighbor here? And how do I create a system for my village to enable the middleman or the gentleman in my village, or the lady in my village, or the young person who has this creative thing to penetrate the bigger market? I think maybe that way we can also be involved. Obviously not taking away the responsibility that government has to create a platform, but I think we must also position ourselves. I so submit. Hello.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you very much, Mr. Pulile. So this juncture, we are almost coming to the end of our interaction. I'd like to invite Franklin Mireri from ULEAD to share the poll results and also hand over to the colleagues from ULEAD for the closing session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, and the entire panelists and participants. Allow me to just briefly, within a minute, share with you the poll results. Question 1 was, have you heard about the African Continental Free Trade Area, the AfCFTA, before today? And an overwhelming 83% said yes, 17% said no. Question 2 was, where did you hear about the AfCFTA? And 15% said newspapers, 55% said social media, 23% from classes or a lecture, 6% from television, in casual conversations, 17%, and other platforms, 17%. Number 3, have you ever been involved in any AfCFTA related activity before today? 40% said yes, 60% said no. And then the final question, are you aware of any other platforms or for you as a youth to contribute or participate in the implementation of the AfCFTA? 38% said yes, 62% said no. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator? Mark, can you hear me?
Franklin, maybe Mark is having some connection issues. Maybe you can chip in for him as we conclude.
Okay.
As he
Thank
comes
you
back.
so much. Thank you, Moses. Allow me to invite the two organizations, the two youth-serving organizations which have been working together collaboratively with ULEAD and the East African Community Youth Ambassadors Platform, as the panelists mentioned in submissions, in terms of advocacy, in terms of working together. So ULEAD and the East African Community Youth Ambassadors saw it wise to partner together with other youth-serving organizations in the continent to be able to implement this project moving forward. And so allow me to invite representatives from SADC and SIOF, the Southern African Youth Forum. Allow me to start with Mr. Mishak Kondo, if you are here. Mishak Kondo, representing SIOF.
Hello, Frank, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity, and allow me to, at this juncture, to thank the representative from COMESA, Mr. Makuramiti. It is such an honor to have you say on this platform, and we are humbled because that's where we get the confidence of our bodies coming together and share with us what we need to do. I would like to recognize the presence of my co-chair, Magi Mwape from Zambia, and Fendulele Zikalawe from Eswatini, the co-chair of SIOF. Would like to also recognize the presence of ULEAD, ULEAD leaders, SADC Youth Council, among other leaders. We really thank you for coming. I also want to recognize the presence of Ndaafa from the government of Namibia, and also from SWAPO for being here. No Kwanda from Global Shapers, and we have been interacting process. And indeed, I agree with Mr. Makuramiti that youth are the leaders of today and tomorrow, and we really need to come on board to work with the bodies, our bodies, both COMESA and SADC. And this discussion is only important because if you look at the demographic dividend in the SADC region, youth constitute a largest percentage with regard to the largest population. And their participation with regard to all spheres, be it political, environmental, economic, social, and political, is very important. And allow me to acknowledge the presence of SADC youths. We have been participating in this, and definitely from what is being gathered, we are gathering a lot of ideas to make sure that, like what Ndahafa, our leader from Namibia, have said, that it's not only about of what we can, what we are asking to be done, but what we can do as young people to take that space, what we can do to transform Africa, what we can do as required by Kwame Nkrumah, one of the greatest leaders, Julius Nyerere, Robert Mugabe, though he has got some shortfalls in Zimbabwe with regard to other issues. But these are great leaders that we emulate. What we can require from other leaders that we need to fulfill, and definitely young people, we are going to, on behalf of Southern Africa Youth Forum, South SADC, I would like to thank you. I would like to thank for this partnership, and we'll continue to interact, making sure that young people in the region, they are brought at large to make sure that they contribute to the discourse of development of our region and the country at large. Back to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mishak. We really also appreciate the teamwork that SAYOF has been playing together with SADC Youth Council. And representing SADC Youth Council, we have Boyd Simpungwe. Boyd Simpungwe, Comrade Boyd, if you hear my voice, welcome. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, moderator. I think to start with, let me recognize as in the partner organizations that are present in this meeting, and probably the ULEAD initiative that has made it possible for us to even gather in this gallant manner as young people of the bloc, as in the southern part of Africa. This actually shows that young people interested in what is happening actually have been interested for a long time now, and we are trying to create, as in these platforms, to ensure that what we aspire for is attended to, and what we actually tend to bring on the table is seen by the people that have gone before us, as in the people that have that are running as in these continental and regional bodies. Yeah, recognizing the fact that young people are actually the biggest demographic in our region, and let me just say across Africa, recognizing them, especially we talked a lot about policy creation, policy development, and policy implementation when it comes to trade and other important, as in papers across the region is quite important, because young people definitely, like you've put it, like most of us have put it, are actually the leaders of today, and us coming up with some platforms definitely will help push what we aspire for forward. The first speaker talked about us being a COMESA citizen, of which I believe definitely we are that, as in we are part of that block. And trade, when it comes to the running of economies in our region, trade definitely is the bedrock of whatever that is happening right now. That's why if you visit every country in this region, East, as in Central, East, and Southern Africa, you find that there's a lot of innovation that is actually pushing at ensuring that trade, as in finds proper means of it being handled in our region. We are talking about expansion of international airports, creation of road networks, expansion of intercity, as in these intercity, as in bus terminals that are strategically as in built up to accommodate this type of innovation. And as also definitely, sir, it's one of our endeavors we are trying to push forward and ensure that young people are integrated. And the good man here talked about mainstreaming young people in these regional initiatives and innovations when it comes to the running of the entire region. Mainstreaming of young people is key. Training young is key. Building that capacity and developing as in policy handling, or let me say initiative handling in the region is key, because tomorrow it is us. Actually, even today it is us. Tomorrow it is us young people who will be at the forefront of driving seats when people are long and go. Yeah, so it is being part of such a lucrative, robust discussion table about the African free trade area, and I believe that a lot has been noted down. A lot will be put in our documents, and a lot will be innovated, recognizing the fact that actually even COMESA is in our midst, and other prominent youth organizations apart from us, the SADC Youth Council, we are actually in attendance. With this, thank you so much, Franklin, for the time.
Thank you so much, Boyd. Allow us to conclude with at least a word from our esteemed panelists. We thank you for the time you've set apart to not just appear, but also prepare for this session. We strongly believe here in East Africa, with the comrades, young people, and policymakers we have engaged in this journey, that what Mr. Innocent has given us as a challenge, that young people should be at the center of not just policy making, but also implementation, will take place moving forward with the AfCFTA. We know the bus started moving a long time ago, but we have an opportunity. So with your guidance, Mr. Innocent, with the panelists here, Ndahafa, Dlamini, we hope that you can inform, together with the participants here and your comments, you will be able to inform how best young people in SADC and the continent can play a role in the implementation of the AfCFTA. Mr. Innocent, over to you, and then the rest of the colleagues. 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I don't have anything much to add, but just to say, the youth, you are the future leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. The youth. Ndahafa, over to you.
Yes, my message to my fellow youth out there is, let us work together. Let us see that there's a new dawn before us, and we need to be very strategic in our approach. Let us group each other. Platforms like this are very, very important. I'm very grateful for the role that SIOF has been playing. And this platform, as Mr. Innocent has said, is the first time that is consulting with the young people. So already we've made history today, and may we continue, and may we go down to the smaller group in our respective countries, urge those that haven't rectified. If you are from a country, make sure that your country has rectified. If it hasn't, please put pressure on your leaders to rectify, put pressure on your leaders to have consultation, and make sure everybody understands what it means. And let's organize ourselves so that we demand, because this thing of asking while we are the one with the power, I think it doesn't make sense. And by that, I also mean by strategically positioning ourselves and making the noise at the right platform in the right manner. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ndahafa. We really appreciate. Over to you, Nokwanda Dlamini.
Thank you very much. Not a lot of words from me, just to say thank you again for this opportunity and for the platform. And my parting shot to the other young people is to say, as Ndahafa has said, there are many pockets of opportunities that we as young people can exploit. And the onus is on you to find your space, or make your own space, or create it somehow, so that you are able to make use of this awesome opportunity. Trade has the potential to lift so many people out of economic empowerment, and the benefits are truly endless. The onus really is just up to us as young people to find our ways of making use of this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nokwanda Dlamini. We really appreciate from us at ULEAD. We just want to also remind you that next Monday, Next week on Monday, the 26th of April, we have an opportunity to also potentially make our stand and our perspectives known to policymakers across the continent. So we'll be having the All Africa high-level roundtable on the AfCFTA. So we invite you, we invite all the participants here to be part of that roundtable. It will happen on Monday, next Monday, the 26th, from 2 p.m. East African time, that is 1 p.m. Southern African time, CAT. So we will be sharing the links on social media, plus also allow us to share that invite with you on email when the time comes during this week. So we hope to see you next week, and your insights will definitely play a role in the report writing, but also we'll share with you what transpires from this and how best together as an army we can be able to move forward in this journey. Moses, anything I may have overlooked? Over to you, Moses.
Everything is covered, Mr. Franklin. Maybe to add my voice on thanking our speakers, our moderator, the participants. As Mr. Innocent said, that youth were the leaders of tomorrow. But if tomorrow becomes too long, you just jump in today. And this agreement is for you. We've been seeing future leaders at least I'm counting you are promised as a future leader when you are 20 until you are 50. So let's jump in. As one of the panelists have said, if you belong to a country, if you come to a country that hasn't ratified, task. Why haven't you ratified? If you have ratified without consulting, why didn't you consult? We've been having these regional consultations. This is our third last. On a day after tomorrow, we are having the West African, which will be the last in the region. Then, as Franklin said, then I will have All Africa, which will be on 26. And in All Africa, you will have all the stakeholders, all the experts you've ever had, and you have a chance to ask them. I can't thank you enough, but to say thank you for your time, thank you for your participation. This agreement belongs to us. If agenda, African Union Agenda 2063, those who designed it by the time of 2063, they will not be available. It's us. Okay. Let's own it. Thank you.
Thank you, Goris.
Bye.
Thank you, Pan.
Maybe Franklin, you can put like a you read song, something, yes, so that they can see what we've been doing.
Okay, thank you.
This COMESA Youth Leaders Bootcamp is the first of its kind that MSTCDC has hosted, and it came about through partnership and collaboration with COMESA when they saw our Youth Lead Summit, which happens every November of every year. So they wanted to collaborate and see how do we bring together youth from the COMESA countries into a space and have them really interrogate the concept around participating in policy, democratic governance, and socioeconomic development. So the boot camp was a response to that how about we have a non-traditional approach to addressing the youth issues, to finding out their concerns, and then also to imparting the knowledge and providing a platform where they could network.
Could also members or delegates have an idea what for COMESA the contact ministries look like?
This COMESA boot camp for young leaders and the policymakers is the first of its kind that we have had. We've never had such a thing before. So when we came, we were just wondering how it was going to be. But I think from Saturday until now, we are very satisfied with what we have gone through, what we have observed that MS does with young people. The URID team are excellent. I think it has been very engaging. You know, the objectives of the meeting was to build capacity of young leaders and the policymakers to bring them in one forum where they can engage on the issues that young people are facing in the COMESA region.
For COMESA, we have procedures, and we cannot go outside the procedures. When we send invitations to member states, we send through the member state, but in the letter, we indicate that we want somebody from government, from national youth associations. So the national youth associations, it can be civil society, it can be a government body, it depends on the country. The country can decide who should represent the young people, but we define that we want 2 youths representing national youth associations.
So in our youth meetings, and also we have another meeting called the high-level dialogue, whereby all of the discussions from the youth and the gender pre-forum goes into the high-level dialogue. We make sure that we open call our participants. So it's basically the same application process that you are familiar with within the ULEAD processes. Open call, online. We have overwhelming number of applicants from all over, including the diaspora. We make sure to go one by one and shortlist. We contact the shortlisted, but we also are very open to suggestions.
As we wind up, kindly just give us, from your perspective, working with the young people in East Africa, the youth engagement model that ULEAD is embracing. Is it working, and can it be improved in your experience so far?
In my experience so far, from our experience in ULEAD, is how we approach even government and how we approach, because also as we work as a region, so we are here, but people are in Juba, people are in Bujumbura, people are in Kigali, people are in Kampala. What normally we do in ULEAD, we have the secretariat which is here, and we are a small group.
I have a solution. Team Africano has a solution to have the Youth Gov Network, which is the first regional digital youth network under the stewardship of COMESA to address the socio-economic development challenges,
educational reforms, and mentoring. We very well know that anything starts with mindset change. So we need to incorporate civic education so as to mentor the young people and have this idea of participation in leadership right from lower levels to the higher levels.
We present before you the Youth Zenia leadership model that will address Africa's leadership problem in 5 categories, being the Ubuntu Leadership Academy, the Ubutainment Media Network, the Africa We Want Model Village, the Subject to Citizen Challenge, and finally the African Youth Presidential Present.
This will provide a good platform for civic education and dialogue.
The whole of this bootcamp has really stressed that as young people, I think we are the change that we would want to see. The bootcamp has challenged us young people that we should not wait for spaces, but we have to create our own spaces, because in most of our countries, young people are just complaining, they are concerned we don't have spaces. But if there are no spaces, why can't we create ourselves?
I've seen a big gap on the youth back at home. I believe that we should be doing more programs to engage the youth in leadership skills, in life skills, just to make them be more active in the government processes, maybe even inform them more on the policy making. Yeah, I believe they can learn a lot.
I think my takeaway is simply that young people have the potential to do so much more than we've been socialized into believing. We've been taught that young people are rebels, young people are fiends for drugs and partying, but we're so much more than that. And I think this experience has really opened my eyes regarding what young people can do. I met young people who have advised presidents, young people who are honorable councillors and members of parliament in their respective countries, young people who are policymakers, and I think it has certainly been an amazing experience.
This is my first time to joining this kind of bootcamp. Especially, it's a very nice and open, a new looking for me. I got too much experience from other youth organizations, and also I can see how look the leaders, the government, to see the youth organizations, and I can see the gap between us, and also I can see the strong youths. I love those youths from different organizations. I can see their future today.
You find that as young people, what I've identified, there's a gap, and the gap is the gap of information. Then there's not that one thing that links us. So even in our group, that's what we were able to discuss. Yes, young people all over, they say there's no meaningful representation, but how can we add the meaningful representation?
I have a lot of things to take it with me home. First, I'm going to raise awareness of young people. There is all the time, there is opportunities available for them. First, then I want to tell them about COMESA opportunities. I know very well they do not know it. So I'm going to tell them what opportunities I had, and I tell them you can have opportunity, and also give them some knowledge which I learned here.
For me, my experience has been totally massive. It's been mind challenging, mind transforming, and mind engaging at the same time. I believe for me, my takeaway out of this whole entire session is how my mind has been crafted to be a design thinker and to look at Africa's problems, not precisely as problems to complain about, but to see how best can we get those problems to bring about an alternative solution to the Africa we want to see.
Africa to me means life.
Africa to me means hope.
Africa to me means unity.
Africa to me means fraternity.
Africa to me is the future land of opportunity.
Africa to me means abundance.